Hello.
Welcome to the podcast known as
Known Unknowns. When you said known as, I thought you were going to start saying known unknowns.
Yeah, I was.
We need to construct an introduction.
Do we?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of our style, right?
Right. This is our hallmark.
We don't know what to do at the top.
Right. What can we do?
I don't know.
What's new, Carly?
Nothing. What's new, Harry?
Oh, nothing much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Carly.
Oh, yeah, you're Carly.
This voice is Carly.
This voice is Harry.
And, you know where you're at.
Yeah, you're on your podcast device, listening to Known Unknowns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So anything we need to tell the people? Our solid 11 listeners. Thank you.
Oh, it's more than that.
I know, I'm kidding.
Maybe. Or maybe it's less.
Yeah, maybe it's less. Maybe people just hit play and then, mute it so then they make us feel better.
Well,
it's more than 11, I promise. I shouldn't make us sound lame.
Well, I mean, if you are just muting it and hitting play to make us feel better, keep it up.
Yeah, honestly, keep doing it. It'll make me feel better.
I mean, you won't hear us saying this, but if by chance you happen to turn up the volume right now, keep playing us. We don't care if you listen or not. Just keep making those numbers go up so that we feel good.
Yeah. Also, you should follow. I mean, I'm sure if you listen to this, you probably follow our Instagram and Twitter and liked our Facebook page. But you know what? You should invite everyone of your friends to like our Facebook page and tell your friends to follow our Instagram page. There's people that I know and that we follow that don't follow us back. And I'm like, you are my friend. You should be following me back. Anyway, I'm not going to start this.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. I'm like, please just support my podcast.
We want to make friends with this podcast, not drive them away.
Yeah, okay, I know.
Or not. Or we can I'm
not driving anyone away. If they're not following us, they're not listening.
You're right.
We know this. So thank you for following us and listening to it.
If you're listening to us, you have definitely and decided not to follow us, then you have made that choice. We have made that plea many times before, and you've stuck by your choice, and I respect that.
Okay.
You're standing up to peer pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Are there any
Why are you really quiet on the? Why is it really quiet on? I don't know how to do technology.
Well,
I don't know how
game's
microphones
all the way down.
work.
I don't know. Yeah, it does look. The waveform is smaller than normal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to fix it. Oh my gosh, I have those clickers.
Oh yeah.
Wait, hold my wine.
Okay.
All right. Entertain them.
Okay, so one conspiracy theory I have is that car manufacturers intentionally make SUVs and trucks more dangerous for pedestrians to make it more likely that more people get killed on the road, so that the roads seem more dangerous, so that more people will buy bigger trucks and SUVs. Oh,
wow.
That's
sad.
I don't know if I believe it, but I'm not gonna say that isn't true. It's just a fun.
Read that?
I made it up myself.
Oh, cool. Then you should write it down somewhere and show people.
Yeah, I'll get
show
people
the world. Don't click it.
Oh, okay.
Should we show them though? No, they're gonna be annoyed.
I mean,
they
you
don't
said
hear it.
I have you brought up the clickers and then I was vamping while you got them.
Right.
So I feel like that was just a waste.
You know the dog trainer clickers? Yeah, well, I learned in my, voiceover class that when you're doing long voiceovers and you mess up, there's the punch and roll, which I don't know how to do because I'm not tech savvy, or there's just like the click and go or whatever it's called, and you get like a dog clicker, and then you like anytime you make a mistake, you click the dog clicker, and then it'll make like a big spike in the waveform on your recording, and then you know where to go back and edit because there'll be like a big huge clipped like spike.
Very clever.
Yeah, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing to like edit it.
So I'm gonna click it.
Oh God. Okay, click it.
And you will either hear it or not hear it, depending on whether we decide it's too irritating.
So we
have
need to know that
edit
the
it out.
first click is just part of the actual recording. Oh, okay. Hey, stop it!
Oh.
They don't want to hear it anymore.
Sorry. That's
so
fun.
that's the dog clicker. You were supposed to click it once.
Oh, I didn't know
Look
that's
at all
what
the...
Yeah, I know. Look at
Okay.
it.
All right.
Well, see, that's how we know that it's like not a legitimate click, because there are
my.
like 6 of them.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I went first last week.
Yeah, that's what we discovered.
Okay. So you go first this week, right?
Yes.
Cool.
All things being equal, I will go first this week.
Great. Come up to the mic, sir.
Okay. So I am going to
Come up closer to the mic, sir.
All right. So I am going to talk. Okay. When I'm like close to the mic, it seems
I
like
see
it's
the wave. Okay, you're like 3 inches. You need to be a little further away from the mic, like here.
Okay. All right.
How fun is it to listen to us talk about waveforms and microphones and stuff? So
Very,
fun.
very fun.
Wait, is this in the right setting back here?
Yeah,
Is it on the double like sided thing?
It is.
How come it's not loud when I talk?
I don't know.
Is it?
Well,
Hi. Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Okay, never mind. It's really loud. All right. Maybe we'll cut that out. Maybe not. If it's really long, which I feel like it might be. Our stories are getting longer and longer.
Yeah. So
it may be more than an hour now.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, okay. So I'm going.
So let's start.
All right.
Sorry, you were starting, and all right, just start. Start.
May I start now?
Yes.
Okay. So we have. I'm just gonna start reading right now. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
All right. In 1984.
Wait, you didn't tell them what you're doing.
Oh, I'm doing Operation Gladio. I was gonna reveal that at the end of my little introduction. What
Sorry,
it was called.
should we cut that out?
No.
All right,
no,
we'll start
it doesn't
over.
matter.
We'll start over.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. It's
Oh
fine.
man. Okay, sorry, I ruined it.
No. Okay. So, in 1984, an Italian judge was looking into an unsolved car bombing that had occurred 12 years earlier in the city of Petiano. While the attack had originally been blamed on a far left-wing terrorist organization called the Red Brigades, none of the individuals charged with it originally had been convicted.
Okay.
This judge, named Felice Casson, reopened the case to examine the various inconsistencies and irregularities of the original investigation.
Question.
Yeah.
Why did a judge reopen the case?
I
mean, I know you don't know anything about their legal system, but like, why can a judge open up a case?
I guess so. I don't.
Or does it need to be like an investigator cop person?
No, it seems to be a judge.
Interesting that a judge. Was he involved in the original case? Like, was he the judge on the original case?
No, he was a. I don't believe so.
Huh. Okay.
There were other investigations going on at this time that I will mention later that that are part of the reason this one was probably reopened.
Okay.
But okay, so he reopened the case, and in doing so, the things he found opened up a whole can of worms. A can of worms, the likes of which conspiracy theorists dream of opening.
Ooh, so I would love it.
Yeah, because these worms have names like secret societies, the mafia, false flag terror attacks, the drug trade, the Vatican, secret weapons caches.
Is the Vatican a conspiracy?
Well,
or
no,
they
it's
do
connected.
sketchy things?
It's connected to this conspiracy.
Okay.
I don't know how. That's
Sorry, I
so,
interrupted.
Yeah. And a whole bunch of other like stuff is also wrapped up. And they're all these worms are tangled together in this can, and the label on this can says Operation Gladio.
Operation Gladio. Is this a conspiracy?
So I'd call it a conspiracy. Yeah.
But
it doesn't
most of it is
fit,
actually real.
or a lot it like parts of it vary.
Okay, will you explain as you go which ones are very factual and which ones are slightly less factual?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny?
Yeah.
Harry doesn't copy and paste things, so when he reads stuff like this off of his page, it is all his writing. This is original content from him.
I mean,
he doesn't really copy and like the can of. Well, did you copy and paste the can of worms thing, or did you write it? See, he's a good storyteller. He's a good writer.
Okay.
Can of worms. I would have just copy and pasted big words off of Wikipedia that I didn't understand.
I wouldn't say it's as like wholly original what I'm talking about. I definitely was heavily inspired by another podcast.
Okay, well, Can of Worms.
Okay.
That was original.
Yes, that was original. But the rest of what I'm talking about, I've kind of
stolen.
Taken inspiration from. I've based my research off of a podcast episode that someone else did. Anyway.
All right, continue. Tell me about Operation. Yeah. I've never heard of Operation Gladio before.
Yeah, well, it's so I'd call it like a conspiracy with a lot of theories attached to it.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to like. It's not like a regular conspiracy theory and like there's one like through line, like, you know, this thing that you think is this way, it's actually this, and here's why. It's more like just this sprawling, like this big sprawling subject with like rabbit holes branching out in all directions. And so it would be like,
so it's like one long story with lots of different plots, but there's different twists and turns within each plot that are very weird. Is that
basically
accurate?
Yeah. Okay. So it's like it's super complicated, and there's like no way that I'd be able to give you like a thorough explanation of everything like tied up into it. So I'm like gonna try to have my part of this episode be sort of like an appetizer sampler, or like a tapas menu maybe, where I'll just try to give you bites of like different like pieces of the Gladio conspiracy.
Cool.
And, you know, maybe if you're inspired to look into it on your own, you can do that and make yourself a full meal. Or if you want, or if there's something that you want to hear more about, you can let us know.
Let us know, yeah.
And I can spend another episode digging into more detail into a particular parts of this. Cool. Anyway. Okay, so at the heart of what all this is a fact. And then as you work your way out from that, the information becomes more difficult to confirm, and lines of inquiry become more tangled up and hard to straighten out. But we'll start with what I can tell you confidently is true.
Okay.
Which is that throughout Western Europe, after World War II, and throughout the Cold War, the United States and Britain created a network of stay-behind operations in preparation for a potential Soviet attack.
Okay.
So a stay-behind operation is basically secret military infrastructure, kind of paramilitary infrastructure, I guess, designed to come into use after an area is occupied by an invading enemy. So in the case of Gladio, the idea is like they hid all these secret weapons caches, as well as like other materials, especially like cash, like just money, in like caves and like old church basements and like in areas and stuff.
In like areas in their own country or other people's other countries. So
this plan was spearheaded by the United States and Britain. So they were hiding things throughout Europe in like other countries. And then they would work to like create a network of like organizations within that country who could then use those things in case like the communists and
so they could hit them from the inside.
Yeah, if the Soviets like invaded and then took over a country, then like right from the bat, they'd have
Right.
like a ready-made like
Oh, shoot.
anti-communist resistance force.
Why don't we learn about this in history class?
So
Wait, do
they-
we? And I just didn't pay attention.
No,
I'm
not
not
really.
a history person. If anyone knows me, you know I don't know anything about geography, history, nothing. Like when was World War II? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. 100 years ago? 1,000? I don't know.
I didn't. It
64.
Was,
Is that when it ended?
No.
Shoot.
It
46.
45.
45.
They were
Oh,
close. Ended in
okay.
1939 to 1945 is when this, the
Damn
second
it.
is when World
Not a
War II
history
was.
person.
Yeah.
Give me a math equation.
And then the Cold War was
Oh,
like
no.
basically from right after this World War
It was
II.
after World War II?
Yeah, right after
Okay.
World War II up until like the 80s and 90s. Anyway.
Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Okay, so yeah, so we created this network throughout Europe. Operations like this were set up all over Europe in like every NATO country and several non-NATO countries. NATO's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization,
Oh.
which was set up during the Cold War, so that like
I was thinking of NATO peri peri chicken.
that's Nando's.
Oops. Okay.
Oh.
Well, it was close. Nando. All right, I'm gonna stop interrupting.
You can no interrupt.
I don't know
you can interrupt.
anything. Okay,
Please.
so
So
okay.
NATO's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's like
Peri
all
chicken.
all the like the U.S. and all its allies in Europe basically
Okay.
joined together. We're like, if Russia attacks one of us, we're all gonna join in the war defending you. We got your back and stuff.
So they're
basically.
scared of Russia.
Yeah. We're
Cool.
scared that
Naturally.
communist Russia is gonna
Oh,
try
we're
to.
scared of communists.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
we're scared of. So technically,
Communists.
Gladio was only the official name of the Italian branch of this program, which is what I'm mostly going to be talking about today.
Okay. So Operation Gladio was a real operation, right? Like
Yes.
it's not the name
It's
of
like
the
a
conspiracy.
confirmed,
It's like
legit-
this is Operation
Yeah.
Gladio.
Mhm.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
a cool name.
Yeah, it had other names in other countries,
Okay.
like in
This
Turkey.
one is Italy.
Yeah, this was
Okay.
in Italy. Operation Gladio is like also it's also the term they use. It's sort of an informal term for like the operation and throughout Europe, like in all the other countries, like as a whole, just because it's the most well known and stuff.
Okay.
But when I'm going to be talking pretty much only about Gladio in Italy today.
Cool.
I'm going to start with saying that not a lot is confirmed when it comes to the hierarchy of Gladio and exactly like who was making what orders when. But
So this is like a secret society? No.
basically,
kind
kind
of.
of.
Government secret society.
Kinda, yeah. It's like
Okay.
a secret like military and intelligence
Oh, okay. I'm like trying to
program,
wrap my
basically.
mind around this. I think I'm getting it.
Yeah, hopefully it becomes a little more clear as it
military.
goes on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
but like,
So hierarchy
mm-hmm.
in
Yeah, so so like the first okay, let me see. Yeah, so I'm going to describe as much as I've been able to piece together throughout this as I can, because no one's ever confirmed like who was in charge when
Okay.
and in charge of what specific things. But after the U.S. put it together, the people we got to like carry out operations like on the ground, like to be the foot soldiers of it, basically, came from two groups. First, the mafia, as
Oh,
well
shoot.
as former fascists in Italy.
mafia. Sorry.
So during World War II, we'd begun like building up relations with both of them.
With the mafia?
Yeah, We'd
Why?
actually because with the mafia, we'd coordinate with them to like help break up strikes. We'd let like one of the like this big mafia boss like out of prison even to like basically run security at the New York docks basically to like prevent sabotage and to like but really it was just to like like crack down on the unions and stuff. to
Okay.
keep-
So the mafia is involved in Operation Gladio?
Yes.
Oh shit.
I
This
don't
is powerful thing. This is
mm-hmm.
powerful
I-
shit.
It's hard.
Mafia and fascists.
And yeah, the fascists as well. And
Got
so as for the fascists, toward the end of World War II, as the U.S. would go into a area that had been controlled by an Axis power and liberate it.
Yeah.
We'd like negotiate with like the Nazis that are in charge there, or other fascist party and intelligence leaders, to try and get them to like switch sides, to help us, so we could either, you know, get them out of the country so they could come and like build rockets or whatever for us back in the US, or, you know, if there wasn't or if, you know, it was possible for them to stay in Europe and not be prosecuted for crimes against humanity, we'd like have them stay around there so that they could be assets for us in our fight against communism, basically.
Oh, God.
And so, like, the first time that these connections became really useful for us was in 1948, when Italy had a general election. So this is 3 years after World War II ended.
Okay. So this is Europe and the United States, right?
Yeah.
Why are we so obsessed with Italy and what they're doing? Because we're communism? Are we just terrified of communism anywhere?
Yeah.
And everywhere?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I feel like I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're worried that after we've had like the Yalta Conference and others at the end of World War II, where we like split up Europe and we say, over here the US and UK can have influence and these countries are going to be like capitalist democracies, and then over here the Soviet Union, Russia, you can have control over this area. You can have these countries do communism if you want. And so we're worried that Russia or the Soviet Union is going to want to take more territory and invade the other part of Europe. And so that's why we're saying.
What does Italy have to do with communism?
Well,
they're not communists.
Well, so after World War II, okay. So that comes into play with the 1948 election.
Yeah, we were talking about that. 1948 election.
So like a lot of areas that had been under Nazi control during the war, Italy had a really strong communist party. People
really?
had a lot of goodwill toward the communists there, because when the fascists took over, like before the war and at the beginning, the moderate liberal establishment had basically just crumbled under pressure from the right. They'd either tried to make deals with them, and then when those would fail, they'd just roll over or go into hiding, basically.
Roll over. Yeah.
And then everyone on the right just slid all the way to the right and went full on fascist Nazi stuff. And so
okay, sorry.
And so the communists in a lot of places were the main group associated with being responsible for any kind of vigorous resistance against the fascists. So the communists ended up being the only political faction really to come out of the war looking better than they had before, basically, because they had put up a lot of resistance, fighting back against the communists. They backed a lot of the resistance movements in France and in Italy and other places around Europe.
The fascists?
No, the communists.
Oh, the communists.
Yeah, they were fighting against the fascists, basically on our side.
Okay.
In World War II. And so after the war, people, liked the Communist Party a lot. And so, we've already put a lot of energy into making sure that we're ready in case Western Europe is invaded, but there's a chance that they could just vote in a communist government in Italy because that's what the people want.
That could happen.
But, we can't. That's not what we had in mind when we said they were going to be a democracy. Yeah.
Okay. Oh no! What do we do?
Okay.
What do we do?
So the Communist Party were in a great position to take over control of Italy's government. The other party which formed to challenge them was called the Christian Democratic Party, which basically encompassed pretty much any view to the right of communism. Basically you'd have everyone from Bernie Sanders to Ted Cruz and everyone in between. It's that. That's how powerful the Communist Party was. That they needed to create a coalition of
everyone else.
Yeah.
To beat them. My gosh, they were really.
I mean, I guess Ted Cruz would probably end up on some like fringe like fascist party, but still, like, you know.
And Bernie Sanders, would he really be in? I feel like
All right, well,
he'd
maybe
probably be more on the communist side.
maybe he
right?
personally would be, but like someone with his
Someone with
view,
his-
with his
okay.
platform
Yeah,
in
yeah,
2019,
You're right. Yeah.
they would be running on the on the Christian Democratic ticket.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so obviously we don't want the communists to win this election, so the U.S. starts like funneling millions and millions of dollars to the Christian Democrats to finance their campaign. And so like the CIA is sending tons of money, the State Department's giving them lots of money to print like posters and like have like radio ads and stuff all over the country. But that's not enough. That it still seems like it's going to be a close election. So like in the last month during the election, we start getting like the mafia and the neo-fascist groups involved to start causing trouble. Have them start doing stuff like starting fights at rallies, like intimidating voters, stuffing ballot boxes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so the Christian Democrats end up winning the election. I think they get 48% of the vote or something. And so they'd go on to like keep control of parliament for decades. I think from then until I think 1994, when the party was dissolved due to some scandal.
Oh my gosh.
The Christian Democrats were in control of parliament.
Wow. It's a long time.
Yeah. But I mean, after this, the Communist Party didn't disappear off the face of the earth or anything.
Right.
They still had like a solid like 20 to 30% of parliament for like a long time after that, and they kept like a strong profile in like local governments around the country as well. They had like
still pretty communist.
I'm not sure what the current state of Italy's like.
Okay.
What their political state is like. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the communists they were well represented in local government. They controlled a lot of like town councils, mayorships, and they had like alternative newspapers and media and stuff.
Wow.
But the Christian Democrats were in charge of like the national politics, and they were able to like keep the communists in check throughout like the 50s and most of the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, Gladio, the intelligence operations continued to build out the Gladio network, like growing neo-fascist paramilitary groups, maintaining and adding to like weapons and money and explosive stockpiles, waiting for a Soviet invasion that never ended up coming.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, the global social upheaval of the 60s came to Italy. And there were lots of like left-wing protests and stuff, people being mad that the Christian Democrats were not doing enough to help poor people and other everything that leftists like.
When did it come out that this was that happened? Like the whole, we gave them a bunch of money, and also mafia did a bunch of bad things to rig the election.
I'm not sure
rigged,
exactly
right?
when that particular part of it came out. Yeah. It was, Operation Gladio started to be uncovered in the 80s, but it wasn't like confirmed until 1990.
Are there people who don't believe that this actually happened?
I mean, I'm sure there are. I don't know. But
Yeah.
so at the end of the 60s, beginning in 1969, a period of Italian history known as the Years of Lead started.
Okay, wait, when was this?
Starting in 1969, the Years of Lead were a period of frequent political violence coming from both the left and the right.
In Italy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming from, hundreds of deaths and thousands of injuries of
gosh.
people.
From what, protests and stuff?
No, from this is when they'd like moved beyond protests, like
Riots.
yeah, and like bombings and assassinations and shootings and stuff.
Oh my god.
And so this lasted until the late 1980s. It was during this time that Gladio implemented a so-called strategy of tension.
Okay.
So before I get to that, so I mentioned that like the foot soldiers of Gladio were like far right militia groups, and then there were mobsters involved on the ground, and also I can't, I didn't have enough time to write and do enough research on this, but they were also possibly helping to like launder money for the CIA/Gladio, or to help like finance the operations with the heroin trade.
Okay.
And okay, so that's like the bottom to lower middle, I guess. And then at the top, you've got the United States and Britain, like intelligence services, who like came up with the plan and started it. And then after NATO was formed, that organization took over some amount of power. And then at some point, the Italian intelligence agencies also took over some degree of control as well. After it came out, everyone was like pointing fingers at everyone else. No one like was taking responsibility for this thing going on and existing, and they were all saying, no, this was a NATO operation, this was an Italian operation, this was the US did this. Anyway. But there was also another group that is super interesting and mysterious, that was responsible for directing Gladio. It was called P2, aka called in Italian Propaganda Due.
Propaganda Due.
Due.
Okay.
Propaganda 2.
Propaganda 2. P2.
P2, yeah. P2 was a Masonic lodge in Italy that was made up of like elites from Italian society. Members of it included prominent journalists and media personalities, politicians, members of parliament and cabinet ministers, high-ranking members of the clergy, industrialists, military leaders, and the heads of all three of the main Italian intelligence agencies. Yeah, so in the early 1980s, the leader of this group's house was raided, and there they found membership rolls with names of like almost 1,000 like prominent Italians who were like part of this group. Where they also found meeting notes detailing plans for stuff like false flag terror attacks, assassinations on like political activists and enemies.
They found stuff. So the P2 group was gonna do this?
Yeah, they were.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so this is where they found
against communists.
Yeah, against the
gosh.
left. Yeah, or
against the left.
Also, I mean, or at least stuff that could be used to damage the left. So this is where the strategy of tension comes in.
Okay.
That's what P2 called this strategy.
So that's how we found out about the strategy of tension.
Yeah.
Because people raided this group's place.
Yeah.
The leaders. Oh my gosh. So like they would set up terrorists, or they were gonna like, set up a fake terrorist attack and make it sound like the left did it.
Yeah, basically.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
that was their attempt to like capitalize.
Strategy of tension. Oh, I get it. To
Yeah.
make them look bad.
Yeah, like
Okay,
yeah, that,
that's
and
weird.
they wanted to just like heighten the sense of chaos and like
Wait, so
terror
that
in
actually
the country.
they did a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like the years of
The years
tension,
of lead.
The years of lead. Were they in charge of that then?
So it did start like organically, but
then they were like, "Oh, let's use this."
so yeah, so the years of lead like started when like leftist students got fed up with like peaceful organizing, peaceful
Amen.
protesting,
and
they were like
peaceful protests. No, I'm kidding. Continue. Peaceful.
they were like fed up with like the communist establishment. It wasn't doing enough. It wasn't militant enough. And so they thought that what was necessary to overthrow capitalism was a revolution. And so the biggest, most well-known group to come out of this movement was called the Red Brigades. And so they started doing various acts of violence like bank robberies,
Oh my God.
bombings, and stuff.
What?
They were all
Wow.
generally pretty like simple and like, well, I'll get into that in a little bit in a second. But so the strategy of tension was P2's attempt to like capitalize on this, so that it would seem like there would be even more violence going on, so people would be even more freaked out, and so that the people would like just get so sick of it that they'd like accept or even demand like a strict like authoritarian like right-wing like rule in the country, basically, so that it would basically allow, it would allow P2 to like come in and take over, like consolidate the media and get rid of trade unions and stuff. And so so they wanted to accomplish this by perpetrating even more violence that could be blamed on the left, or that could at least like so there were a lot of like terrorist attacks at this point that where like it originally came out that it was like this left-wing group like the Red Brigades who was doing this stuff. For instance, the Bologna train station bombing, which like killed 85 people and injured 200 more, they like blamed it on this. They initially group. And then later on it came out that there was actually this like it was this P2? It was a group called Ordine Nuovo,
so
which
was a lot of groups like this.
Yeah, there were a lot of like Ordine Nuovo was one of the bigger main ones, but there were also a lot of like different smaller like groups.
That's scary. Like that's scary to think about. Like I just can't imagine living here. And like being scared to, I don't know, was this a point in time where they were just scared to go outside because so many things were happening, or is this just, am I overthinking this?
I mean,
am I thinking this is bigger than it is?
No, I'm sure. I mean,
because right now I'm not too terribly scared to go anywhere in the United States and just be like, oh no, riots everywhere.
I don't know exactly like how successful this was in like
I can't imagine
sowing a sense of chaos. I don't know. Maybe just I don't know, equate it to like the sense of like just general like back of your head nervousness that a mass shooting is gonna happen.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like what I don't really know what it was like. Another thing that is there, it's less there's less evidence around who did this. The kidnapping and murder of Aldo Moro, who was the prime minister of Italy.
Oh my gosh.
So he was like in like basically broad daylight. His motorcade or something was going through a town, or he was like with his security detail like moving somewhere, and these people came in and like shot all of the security guards and kidnapped him.
What?
And, so
did he fake his own death though? What if he's hiding out? Wait, is this the thing?
Well, so the reason that people think that Gladio is related to it is because it was a really well done operation, basically like super organized strike, which doesn't line up with how a lot of the other like Red Brigade attacks were. They were a lot simpler. They were just like pissed off like students. Philosophy majors and stuff. I was gonna say,
weren't they young? Like just mad, angry. Yeah.
So it was like a really like well coordinated attack. Also, Aldo Moro was he was a prominent member of the Christian Democrats for a long time, but toward the end of his career, he was he wanted to bring more stability to the party. There was a lot of like infighting to it, and he wanted to like help to the government, and he wanted to like help that by like allowing more of the communists in parliament to come into the party and have a little more power and stuff. And he was hoping that would that would help the stability situation. But while he was considering that, he visited the United States, where he talked to Henry Kissinger, I think it was, who was Secretary of State, and who said that if you do this, you will, if you like let the communists take any more power, you'll regret it and stuff. There's something else in a really like menacing, threatening way that really freaked out Aldo Moro. He like wanted to quit politics after that, basically.
Oh my God.
But when he got back to Italy, this happened, and that he got kidnapped. They like killed all of security detail without like hurting him, and then they found him like days later in the trunk of a car. And the attack was like originally like blamed on the left, though it was later found out that a lot of the people that it was probably more likely done by a right-wing hate group. or something. But, you know, even with, it was originally planned on this left-wing group, but then it was found out that they didn't do it. They couldn't have done it.
So it was like planted on someone. Oh.
So it was, and I don't think they ever found out actually who was responsible,
But it definitely.
but,
since
you
it
know, there was
planted
enough
on a
confusion
left-wing-
around it that, like, any ideas of getting the communists more involved in government were, like brushed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Operation Gladio started to become found out about during the 1980s. As I mentioned at the beginning, that judge who was looking into the car bombing, he found out that the explosives expert who'd been working with the police on the case, named Marco Morin, he was actually a member of Ordine Nuovo, and was giving them false information, so that he was telling them the explosives that were used in the attack came from the Red Brigade. This judge, when he looked into it, found out that the weapons that were found in it that the explosives used were actually C4 that was identical to C4 that had been found at a weapons cache that was found near the city of Trieste, and also coincidentally in 1972. So it turns out that it's a lot more complicated than he thought, and so he tried to go into the files of the Italian secret intelligence agency, so that he could try to find out where who was responsible for this weapons cache. And he found out that it was connected to these far right groups as well as the Italian government and stuff. And so in 1990, the Prime Minister of Italy, I don't remember his name, Giulio Andreotti, I think, he gave a speech to Parliament where he admitted that there had been this operation called Operation Gladio going on in the country, and he made it clear that Italy's not the only place where this is happening, or where this has happened. And so that led to the European Union then declaring that we need to have investigations into this. Although only 5 countries ever did actually do investigations into it, and a whole lot about it is still very much unknown. Yeah, that's about all I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions.
No questions. Okay.
No.
Good.
Not really.
Yeah. So more spy stuff from me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is. It's very strange. Yeah. I know. I first heard about Operation Gladio. I first got really interested in it when I heard about it on a podcast or an episode of, I think, a premium episode of Chapo Trap House, where Matt Christman is doing a good rundown of it, and he has a lot of, he uses it as a context kind of to talk about conspiracy thought in general, I guess, and how knowing, if this one thing is true, that can open a lot of other doors in your head, but you have to be careful of where those are, you gotta keep your wits about you as you're looking for proof and stuff. But anyway.
Okay.
We can move on to what you have now.
Sure.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I'm very excited about it.
Good. I'm curious to hear what you have.
Yeah. Are you curious?
Yeah, I want to know.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, you're
seems
not
interesting.
gonna like it because it's kind of true crimey, but not really. It's more about. Okay, so I'm doing the story of Terry Lee Hoffman and the cult called Conscious Development of Body, Mind, and Soul.
Well, those sound like all good things.
Yeah. So it's focused a lot on the, I don't know. There's a lot of murder that happens in here. Well, so you'll see. It could be murder, maybe not. So if you don't like a lot of stuff about death, but I feel like anytime you talk about cults, there's a lot of mass death scenarios, you know?
Yeah.
So, this is about the cult of conscious development of body, mind, and soul. So, in the days after Thanksgiving of 1989 in Dallas, Texas, there were reports of a putrid odor coming out of David and Glenda Goodman's home. Yeah. So when firemen came, they kicked down the front door because no one was answering. And the stench poured out of the house.
Oh, no.
Yes. So when the firemen kicked down the door, two of them, the first two who were right there in the doorway, stopped, went out onto the lawn, and threw up. So they realized, they all backed away. They're like, okay, no one can go in here without, gas masks and like hazmat suits. So they all put that stuff on. So then they stepped into the house and saw black clouds of flies swarming around the house, and then just piles of dead fly like carcasses on the ground. Like that, just the black clouds of flies everywhere. That's nasty. And then all the dead flies on the ground. Then they came upon the former Southern Methodist University business professor and his wife. I don't know what she did. That's all I could find was this big business professor guy and his wife. Both 48. They found their dead bodies on the floor. The corpses were close together on the carpet in front of the coffee table, both with guns at their sides. Each had been shot once in the head, and it looked like the gun had been placed right on their skull and shot, but they each had different, so it looked like they had killed themselves, which they did, probably. They had been dead for more than a month.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wow, that took them a long time.
They didn't have
Very
much
private people.
Yeah.
Because the house was locked and nothing was missing, police and medical examiners would conclude that the Goodmans had carried out a double death ritual suicide. So to outsiders, the Goodmans had everything, and their relationship was great, and the two of them were inseparable, which nothing really disputed that. They did seem inseparable. They had both had like failed marriages in the past, and they had recently married, and they were really happy. What people didn't know was that the Goodmans were looking for some spiritual guidance, and they were on a very odd spiritual journey at the time.
Okay.
So David and Glenda had set out in search of enlightenment. So to investigators, David and Glenda's discovery of the... Wait. So it seemed pretty sudden, and there wasn't a lot of... It didn't look like it was very planned, because there was no suicide note or will could be found. No suicide note or will could be found among their belongings.
Okay.
But in their handwritten journals that David and Glenda left behind suggests that they had planned their deaths for months.
Okay.
And they had been instructed by God to kill themselves.
Oof.
And this God that they're referring to is a 52-year-old Dallas spiritual guru named Terry Lee Hoffman.
Oh, so not the God I was thinking of.
No.
It's a very different God.
Right. So the journal also noted that all of their money and possessions were to go to Terry Lee Hoffman. So that's the beginning of this story. Well, really the end of this story. These were like some of the last two deaths that really sparked the conversation.
Okay.
So it kind of started from the end. So we'll go back to the beginning now.
Okay.
So conscious development.
Okay.
Is the
conscious development
cult. Terry Hoffman is a short, plump woman with black hair. Her face seems almost childlike, full, and unwrinkled. Yeah. To her followers, Terry boasted of her powers. She could see the past and future. She could shield people from harm, even from car accidents and cancer, and she could communicate with the dead. Yeah. Terry was only 3.5, growing up in Fort Stockton, when 3 of the Masters, is what, I don't know, she calls them, first appeared in a vision to instruct her they would come periodically to her. Terry later explained, not all of the time and not all of the time when I wanted them. They taught her about her special abilities and that through God, her special abilities through God and meditation.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And that through God and meditation, she could do anything if she wanted it badly enough.
Ooh, like the secret.
Yeah. So she didn't have a great childhood, obviously. Her family was poor, her sister was stillborn, and her mother was dying of tuberculosis. And at 9, and her father died in a plane accident. So at 9, Terry was sent to a... Oh, wait, no. That's not her. That's someone else.
Oh, that's someone else?
Yeah, at 9, Terry was sent to a Lutheran orphanage in Round Rock where the visions appeared again.
Oh.
She says it was there that she learned she was the reincarnation of Saint Teresa of Avila.
Oh.
A 16th century Spanish nun.
Okay.
She experienced visions from the 3 persons of the Holy Trinity and believed that the kingdom of heaven could be visited like rooms in a castle.
Okay.
Yes. At the age of 11, she was adopted. What?
If you're gonna call yourself the second coming of something, find a more well-known figure than Saint Teresa of Avila.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
well, later she thinks she's like the second coming of God.
Well, that's okay. That's
Obviously.
Shooting a bit bigger.
I know. So a month after at the age of 11, right, she was adopted by a Dallas Oil Company clerk and his wife, who renamed her Terry Lee Benson. She remained with her new family for only 4 years because a month after she turned 15, Mary ran away to get married.
Oh.
She ran away to Oklahoma. Her first husband was an 18-year-old truck driver named John Ray Wilder. On the wedding license, obviously, both Terry and John lied about their ages by 3 years. And then they returned to Dallas, where Terry was soon pregnant and dropped out of high school.
Hey.
Her daughter, Kathy, arrived in 1954, Kenneth, 1958, and Virginia in 1963. So the 2 of them lived on a farm in South Dallas County. John supported the family by driving rigs while Terry stayed at home with the children. So, at this time, Terry began to dabble in the occult.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very cool.
At first, she was just reading a mail-order book on hypnotism and the writings of psychic Edgar Cayce, and chatting with other housewives about the meaning of life. Then, Terry began taking classes in hypnosis. By the late 60s, after the Wilders had moved to the North Dallas suburbs of Farmers Branch, Terry was leading weekly evening meditation classes of her own. She started a new group called Conscious Development of Body, Mind, and Soul.
All right, and now we're getting into it.
Yes. Part of her teachings was her interpretation of the law of karma.
Oh, okay.
Terry taught that behavior on Earth, or the physical realm, would affect prospects for reincarnation in a higher spiritual realm.
Interesting.
Yes. Those experiencing misfortune were suffering the consequences of bad deeds in previous lives.
Okay.
Yeah. So everyone in the meditation classes sat cross-legged on the floor, listening to her wisdom on everything from sex to personal finance to ghosts.
She's got a lot of wisdom to give, I guess.
Yeah. Then Terry led the group into what some would later call a trance-like state. They would cap the evening off with a round of prayer, and individual consultations were also available on any subject for an hourly fee. So her husband, John Wilder, he did not like this. On December, no, he was not. He was like, no, you're weird. You're creepy. This is not okay.
She was raking in those hourly fees.
Right. Well, oops. On December 28th, 1970, Terry filed for divorce, explaining to a friend that her husband was impeding my spiritual growth. Wilder and Terry's adoptive mother had her temporarily committed to a hospital for psychiatric examination, and after persuading a judge that she posed a substantial risk of causing serious harm to herself and or others. In the divorce, she lost custody of her 2 younger children because of that. Terry remarried just 4 months later.
Okay.
Her new
Getting
husband,
back on the horse.
I know, was Glenn Scott Cooley, a student at North Texas State University and a spiritual disciple of conscious development. She was 33 years old and he was 20.
She was married for a while.
Yeah. Well, they had 3 kids.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, they were married for a while. So the Cooleys bought a house together in North Dallas and worked full-time in the work of conscious development. In addition to her printed lessons and private consultations, so she like printed lessons on like little pamphlets and stuff and, you know, sold them and also handed them out. Terry branched out into the jewelry business. She taught that certain gems and crystals, when properly selected and electrically charged, possessed protective and healing properties. She then decided that she was trying to sell them to her followers, and persuaded her followers to buy the jewelry she was making to protect themselves. And the more expensive the item, the more power it contained.
She was just Gwyneth Paltrow ahead of her time.
And so whoever had like the most, you know, rings was just the most like devout, conscious development this person.
Well, if it works for the Catholics, it works for her.
Yep. So Sandy Cleaver had the most rings among the group.
Way to go, Sandy.
Sandy.
Yeah. Keep it up.
Well, she was the most committed to Terry. Raised in Alabama. So we're going to talk about Sandy a little bit because Sandy stays with Terry forever.
Okay.
Yeah. So Terry was raised in Alabama. Sandy was a slender, earnest woman who enjoyed the income from her family trust fund.
Yay.
So she was just a rich white lady who was trying to find some spiritual guidance and was just very lost. And then she found Terry and really just jumped into this.
Okay.
Yes. So despite her financial advantages and considerable intelligence, Sandy was spiritually troubled, as I said. Her parents had divorced while she was a child, and her mother had spent years in and out of mental hospitals. Her teenage sister died in a car accident, and in 1966, her father died in a plane crash.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
I guess plane crashes used to be a lot more common.
Yeah. Well, remember Terry's
Yeah, I know.
didn't die.
Oh,
in
he
the
didn't.
plane.
Oh,
no, I
okay.
said that was a different
right,
person.
right.
I got it
Okay.
confused.
It was just Sandy.
1 month after Terry's marriage to John Wilder, so remember the leader Terry and the first husband.
Right.
Once their marriage ended, Sandy a month later filed for divorce divorce from her husband Chuck. Because she and Terry had agreed he was blocking her spiritual development.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah. In a year-long custody battle, her husband Chuck claimed that Sandy was an unfit mother because of her immersion in Terry's teachings. Convinced that conventional medicine was useless, Sandy had refused to allow Chuck to take Devereaux, their daughter, even when really sick, to the pediatrician. She preferred prayer, incense, and incantations. Sandy, okay, this is crazy too.
Okay.
Sandy also placed her faith, so she didn't take them to licensed, physicians.
Right.
She preferred Sandy placed her faith, and she preferred to take an assortment of unlabeled pills prescribed by an unlicensed healer in Mexico who was recommended by Terry.
Oh.
So that's who she went to. The healer diagnosed Devereaux's condition, so Sandy's daughter.
Yeah.
Her young daughter.
Right.
So the healer diagnosed Devereaux's condition telepathically.
Okay.
Then shipped bottles of pills to Dallas by bus. At one point, Chuck, Sandy's husband,
Yeah.
testified Sandy was giving her 5-year-old daughter, Devereaux, up to 110 pills a day.
What?
Unlabeled pills from a healer in Mexico that, like, diagnosed her telepathically.
That is some, yeah.
But wouldn't take her kid to a licensed, like, doctor.
Where was this? Oh, in
Dallas, Texas.
In Texas? Okay.
It blows my mind. So a special provision of the divorce decree obligated Sandy to take Devereaux to only to, quote, recognized physicians licensed to practice in Texas, unquote. Sad that needed to be in there, but fine. Oh, that was that's like the craziest part to me in this story. I'm like, 110 pills a day of just unlabeled, like, here, just take these pills that this man in Mexico gave me.
At least the Christian Scientists do nothing.
I know.
They're not, like, doing things. I mean, they're at least not doing stuff to harm, I guess. I
couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, but, I mean, so they determined that the healer wasn't right in his diagnosis?
I don't know. Terry and Sandy. Wait, what? Terry and Sandy?
The court.
Oh, yeah, the court. Yeah, didn't like that idea.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but what if he was right?
Oh my God. Okay. So after the divorce, Sandy became Terry's full-time unpaid assistant.
Hey.
So an intern? She began rewriting the conscious development correspondence courses and dipped into her own pocket to buy the group a printing press. She helped make jewelry, she kept the group's books, and wrote its checks. When Terry legally incorporated conscious development in 1974, she named Sandy as secretary-treasurer. The more involved Sandy became, the less attention she seemed to pay to Devereaux, her daughter.
Yeah.
So, traveling out of town with Terry to sell jewelry, she left Devereaux for days on end in the care of the family's elderly housekeeper, Louise Watson. Sandy felt certain that her work was worth virtually any sacrifice. By the mid-70s, more than 100 people were attending Conscious Development's weekly lectures held at the SMU campus or in a room at the North Dallas's First Unitarian Church.
Okay.
She and Terry began to speak excitedly about taking conscious development nationwide, about building a school to spread their gospel. So, now I'm going to dive a little bit more, so we're going to turn a little bit, dive a little bit more into the beliefs of this group. This is where it gets wacky.
Okay.
Ready?
Good.
Okay. With her group's popularity spreading, Terry designated about 25 of her most devoted followers, including Sandy Cleaver, as what she called teachers.
Okay.
And they would run some of the weekly classes in her place, and it was like a very exclusive group. Like, it was hard to get in.
Right.
And her followers, so her 25 small group of followers that were the teachers, started calling her the Anatamaji, or the Divine Revelator. That's what that means. And Terry told Sandy that she could levitate and heal the sick even from hundreds of miles away. She described meditations in which she communicated with the Babaji, a legendary Himalayan guru, and another in which she talked to Plato. As the number of people casually involved in conscious development grew, so like just the not the
inner circle.
Not the inner circle, that's what I was looking for. Terry began convening weekly meetings of her inner circle. It said it right here. The hand-picked teachers group. There she solemnly revealed that they were members of the White Brotherhood.
Oh.
Chosen by the Masters. So one of these Masters was named, like, Marcus. It was Marcus.
Marcus?
And Marcus, like, guided her. His name was just Marcus.
Okay.
And Marcus, like, comes to her and just, like, guides her and tells her what other people need to do. So, like, Marcus is one of the Masters. That's what, like, the Masters. I don't really know. It gets so dumb.
Do you know what the other ones are named?
No.
Oh.
They only really point out Marcus.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Marcus.
So they revealed that the members of the White Brotherhood, chosen by the Masters to battle the forces of evil. So their enemies, guess what they were called?
The Dark Brotherhood.
The Black Brotherhood.
The Black Brotherhood.
Well, they were called Black Lords, part of the sinister group, the Black Brotherhood. On behalf of all mankind, the conscious development teachers would have to engage the Black Lords in combat.
Oh, no.
Okay, so this gets funny. So the Black Lords exist on the astral and mental planes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's better than physical.
So, explained instructions distributed to the teachers. Quote, to kill them, one must take them to the pits of hell where their soul and lower bodies were to be dissolved, unquote. So the deadliest ones were the Black Overlords. Since they can't be dissolved in the pits of hell, they have to be taken to the electromagnetic dissolving cave. And these all existed on the astral mental planes.
It's too bad that, like, RPG video games didn't exist. She could have just had a career writing those at the time.
So we have the Black Overlords, the Black Lords, and then we have the Garbons.
Oh.
Or the Garbons? I'm going to say Garbons because it sounds like garbanzo beans.
It's like Garbons.
So the Garbons were about 6 feet tall with a long beak. The Garbons have a gargoyle-like appearance, and they're covered with slime. Yeah. They have been known to be able to touch one in the physical realm and leave slime on the body of their victim. Quote, if after 30 seconds or a minute you feel a tingling sensation in your hand, or if your hand is shaking, you should assume that you have a Garbon stuck to your hand. So, using your imagination, or going to your mental astral plane of existence, I should say, you must wrap it in barbed wire, stab it, and kill it. Then imagine the dead Garbon spinning straight up and dissolving into the universe. And that's how you kill a Garbon.
All right.
Okay.
Seems easy enough.
So, to challenge the Black Brotherhood, the teachers armed themselves with magic symbols. A rod, a cup, a sword, and a cloth bag containing a cup of dirt. But the symbols represented fire, water, air, and earth, and gave the teachers twice the power against the Black Lords if they were, like, armed with these things. But these symbols that they carried didn't have to be full-sized. So, like, letter openers and ballpoint pens could serve as swords.
So
they're sitting in a circle, cross-legged, their eyes closed, and they're, like, in the air, like, they're, like, jabbing the air with pens and, like, letter openers, trying to fight these Black Lords and Garbons, and they're just like, you can't see me, but I have my eyes closed, and I'm just stabbing the air.
No.
What?
She really should have. Man. Because, she had a bright career ahead of her in, like, writing fantasy video game lore. Yeah. But too bad she was a cult leader.
Yeah. So Terry encouraged everyone in the group to dress for battle in a robe. And a properly made robe will give you up to 15 times more power. So I'm sure you could buy that from her.
I'm sure.
And you have to wear a headband with silver or gold symbols and her protective jewelry.
Okay.
Each teacher sat inside his or her magic circle. So a large circle of cloth inscribed with a triangle.
I just realized she invented microtransactions, too.
What?
It's another video game thing, but, like, where you can, like, buy, like, with real money, like, better or different, like, armors and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So the magic circles offered protection, and some teachers even slept inside of them. Next, they performed a series of protection rituals with their magic symbols, and then the conscious development followers set about the task of killing the Black Lords. So using carefully practiced gestures, the teachers would, like, slice and dice through the air with their ballpoint pens and letter openers. Though the fighting was restricted to the spiritual realm, many teachers regarded it as quite real and deadly.
Oh,
When Terry would suffer any kind of like physical ailment or like sickness, she told her followers she was experiencing that because of the punishment from the Black Lords because they didn't kill enough that day.
No.
So week after week, the teachers split into separate groups to battle the forces of evil. The fighting went on for hours and late into the night.
Wow.
Occasional written updates from Terry's lieutenants offered body counts. They would offer like body counts of how many Black Lords, Garbons, Black Overlords they killed.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, they must have really believed in it then to go along with all that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they did.
Wow.
I just can't believe. I'm like, what? See, I know I would join a cult, but I think I would join more of a hippie dippy kind of cult, not like a very nerdy science
Christian
fiction
video
kind
game
of
cult.
Oh yeah, no. I'm like, no, I don't know about that. Okay. So, for 6 years, Glenn, her second husband, do you remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, the second college student husband,
Right.
had worked full-time in the conscious development jewelry business, incorporated as CD Gems. But after the battles with the Black Lords and the, fake fighting with pens, he told his mom that he was scared and he didn't want to be in this anymore and that he wanted out of the whole thing, the marriage, the cult, everything. His mother later testified that in court that he went to her and was like, I want out. This is weird.
They're fighting Garbons.
They're fighting
Can you come
Garbanzo
pick
beans.
me up?
Please help me. Can you come pick me up? So, Terry and Glenn separated. See, I like Glenn. I like Glenn. He just was into this because he's like, yeah, jewelry, energizing gems. That makes sense to me. Like, the gem part was like, okay, and then he started a jewelry business,
Right.
So they separated in 1976 and she filed for divorce. Glenn agreed to expedite the proceedings. Everything was very amicable and he was still working with Terry on the jewelry business.
Okay.
And, they were just like still going to be partners in this business and be like cool with each other. So the divorce decree was granted on January 27th, 1977. 5 days later.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Glenn went to spend the night at a cabin his parents owned on Lake Grapevine, northwest of Dallas. The next day, Terry reported discovering a hand-scrawled note from Glenn in her safe, titled Last Will and Testament. So, it read, I, Glenn Cooley, give to Terry Cooley all of my property, both personal and real. This includes 2 boats, a 1972 Buick Limited, all jewelry and equipment for its making, and furnishings for the house on Dunhaven Road and all cash. I ask that this will of mine not be contested by anyone in any way for any reason.
Well, that's not suspicious.
Last but not least, I give all my love to all my family and friends.
Oh, well, at least I got that.
As explanation for all of this, I can't really say what it is because of. But I can say what it is because of what it is not because of.
Okay.
It is not because of divorce with Terry, past drug experience, inability to cope, etc. What it is, I myself know, but don't have the words for, is what this will says. Hand-scrawled note. So, Terry later told authorities that after finding the note, she and 2 other conscious development members drove with them to the cabin where they discovered Glenn's dead body.
Uh-oh.
Terry's 25-year-old ex-husband had taken off his shoes and climbed into bed. Foam oozed out of his mouth, and a half-empty can of Coors beer sat on the nearby dresser, and 2 capsules were discovered when the body was moved. A drug screen followed. An autopsy revealed the presence of Valium and Librium in Cooley's blood. The death was attributed to a drug overdose, and Terry's account of Cooley's death would stand unchallenged for 13 years.
All right. If it says in I'm just gonna say this: if it says in my will, do not contest this will under any circumstances. Please do contest my will.
Yeah, I know, right?
That should just be like an automatic, like that should just trigger an automatic investigation.
Yep. Okay, so that's what Terry says, but a long time later, a former conscious development teacher told investigators a different story. According to the woman, she and Terry went to the cabin the night of February 1st, 1977, while Glenn was still alive. The woman said Terry had told her on the way to the lake that Glenn was going to the next level. And when they arrived, Glenn, still lucid, said he had consumed the fatal drugs.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, within the teacher's group, obviously this, like, terrible death was, you know what it was from? They didn't kill enough Black Lords.
Well, sure.
So, Terry announced a new defensive strategy. Ready?
Okay.
Because the Black Lords had the power to poison their blood. Well, because that's why Glenn died.
Right. His blood.
She introduced the strategy of bloodletting.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Those affected needed to drain the poison, so a single syringe full would do it.
Okay.
And then, so after she was like, let's do this bloodletting thing. Many people left the group. They were like, this is too much, too far. Even the inner circle of teachers started leaving. But Sandy Cleaver, her faith remained unshaken.
She let the most blood of all.
Yeah. So eventually, Terry began telling Sandy that black forces had infected her daughter, Devereaux.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Sorry, this is a long story, but it's good. Are you still interested?
Yeah, no, I am.
Are you still,
I know
this is interesting, right? Okay, so 14 years old, Devereaux attended the private Green Hill School in North Dallas, where she was a good student and wrote poetry. At 5'9", she was tall. She was popular with classmates and a vigorous athlete, a member of the middle school basketball team, and a powerful swimmer. So a good student.
Uh-huh.
But her own mother was frightened of her. Sandy told conscious development colleagues that evil spirits in Devereaux were trying to infect her energies.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Devereaux was really sad that her mom wasn't paying her any attention.
Yeah.
Like, even her mom refused to go to her basketball games because she was scared of her daughter and that would affect her energies. How depressing is that?
Very.
Yeah. So, in 1979, when Sandy was like, hey, Devereaux, you want to go on a trip with me and my fiance, Lynn Fairchild? A pre-wedding, you want to come on this pre-wedding trip to Hawaii? Do you want to come with? She was super excited because her mom was like trying to bond with her and she was giving her some attention, you know?
Yeah. So
they went on this trip to Hawaii. So on February 25th, Sandy and Devereaux took a blue inflatable raft and paddled out several hundred yards. Suddenly, a wave knocked them off the raft, and a second one drove them apart and underwater. Sandy said she dove for Devereaux but couldn't find her. Rescuers reached Sandy, bruised and bleeding, atop of a very spiky coral reef.
Mm-hmm.
And Devereaux's body was not recovered for hours. She was dead.
Yeah.
So, Chuck Cleaver learned that Chuck, the dad of, Devereaux, learned that his daughter was missing when Terry called his home in Dallas at 1 a.m. He left immediately for Hawaii and arrived to find Terry, the spiritual leader, the cult leader, in Sandy's hospital room. While Chuck was gone, one of Terry's followers called his home to serve notice that she had a document he needed to see. A family friend went to pick it up. Terry had Devereaux's will.
Great.
Addressed to Terry and Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was her third husband. Okay. She's married for a third time now. The handwritten letter stated who was to get her rock collection and her basketball. And it left all her money Devereaux had a $125,000 trust fund to conscious development school that Terry and her mother had planned. It said, quote, "I give, devise, and bequeath all of my property, including all rights, titles, and interests of whatever character I may own, and to any property, real, personal, or mixed, wherever situated, to Terry Johnson, who has been to me like a second mother." And just like Glenn Cooley's last statement, Devereaux's will specifically asks that it not be challenged. So Chuck is like, whoa, no. She didn't even talk to Terry.
Yeah.
Never. Like, she never interacted with Terry. Ever. Like, she hated the idea of this conscious development thing. And somehow Terry and Sandy find this will of a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two documents were invalid since minors cannot write a legal will in Texas.
Hey.
So.
Well, sounds right.
Yeah. So Sandy herself, so Devereaux's mom and the assistant basically to Terry, 2 months after Devereaux's death, she took out a life insurance policy of $300,000, twice what her State Farm agent recommended she take out.
Right.
She took it out on herself.
Okay.
So Terry was the sole beneficiary of Sandy's life insurance policy. At the end of 1979, she transferred the title of her $180,000 North Dallas house to Terry, and then began paying Terry rent for the privilege of living in her own home. Because she gave the house to Terry, and then started paying Terry rent because she was now living in Terry's house.
Wow.
What? It's crazy. So, on September 8th, 1981, Sandy and her housekeeper, remember the old housekeeper who took care of Devereaux, Louise Watson, left for what was to be a 6-day trip to Colorado. Louise, who is now 77, didn't want to go on the trip because she hadn't been feeling well.
Right.
But Sandy persuaded her to go. Yeah. So after renting a station wagon at the Denver airport, the two women spent the night with Terry's sister in Colorado Springs, and then they set out for the conscious development property the next day. So they had a conscious development property in Colorado that they wanted to build the school on, and she was going to go check it out.
I see.
About 5 that afternoon, in the area known as the Garden of the Gods, Sandy Cleaver drove straight off of a mountain. Yeah. Drove straight off the mountain. And they know this because it was a sharp curve, but there weren't any skid marks, so there wasn't any attempt to stop or turn. She drove right off the mountain and killed both of them died. Again, Terry had a will for both Sandy and Louise Watson. Sandy had updated it 3 months earlier and had left everything to Terry.
Sure,
and
that one I
Louise,
buy.
the housekeeper, also had a will that left everything to Terry.
Okay, I'm more skeptical of that one.
Yeah. So, for Terry, the impact of Sandy's death was devastating, and so she halted all conscious development classes for a while. So, wow.
Yeah.
By the mid-'80s, Terry had become an all-purpose guru. In addition to spiritual counseling and jewelry, she now offered her own perfume and acupuncture massage therapy. Special rub-downs intended to unclog the body's blocked energy centers. So word got around after the Goodman's death. Remember the Goodman's death at the beginning? So a case finally opens up in January 1990 against Terry Hoffman, because they're like, I wonder if she's been killing people. She killed 2 of her ex-husbands. I don't think I got to that. She killed 2 of her ex-husbands. And both of them died from Valium and Librium in their blood. And both had wills that... So she was obviously killing some of the people. So there was definitely murders, blah, blah, blah. So ADA Cecil Emerson stated that it will be difficult to determine if mind control can legally be a contributing factor in a death. But also, she definitely just straight up murdered some of the people.
Right.
So Hoffman and Conscious Development denied any wrongdoing. Her lawyer, Fred Time, referred to the investigation as a witch hunt and praised his client's persona. After 4 years, prosecutors could not find evidence linking Hoffman to the deaths. So Hoffman filed for bankruptcy in October of 1991, but then she was sentenced to 16 months in prison for 10 counts of bankruptcy fraud in May 1994. I was going to say, she has a shit ton of money.
Right.
Everyone she knows gave her stuff. So people who testified, there was 4 people that were character witnesses at the trial for Terry.
Right.
3 of the 4 would later go on to commit suicide and leave all of their stuff to Terry in their will. So this was like a theme, obviously. Yeah. So she was released after serving a year. Hoffman later married, so this is like her 5th husband, married Roger Keenly and changed her name to Terry Lila Kenley. And she started a website about her experience and many talents, and also wrote a financial advice book.
She's just an expert on a lot of things.
Yeah. And that's the story of Terry Lee Hoffman and the cult conscious development of the mind, body, and soul, or something.
Cool.
So that was incredibly long.
Yeah, it's
Frick, that was like an hour long, and I'm so sorry. But was it interesting?
Yeah, it was interesting.
Was it? Or are you just being like,
No, it was. Yeah,
okay.
It was. So she's still...
Oh my god. So she's still around.
Still active, like doing her scams and stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a lot. I should have...
No, that's okay.
Wasn't it? It's just so much stuff. There's so much more stuff to it, though. Like,
I'm sure.
If you have time to sit down and read about it, that was only like half of it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was a long one too this week, so we should probably wrap up.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I should not write 12 pages of information anymore. It was like 14 size font though, so you know.
Yeah, it was less than 12.
Sorry, it was like
okay.
a solid. Well, no, I don't know how long yours lasted. So
I think I think yours started in around the 40-ish mark. So yours one was like 40 minutes.
Okay, so it wasn't that long.
Mine was probably like 30 something. Yours was 40 something.
So yeah, our stuff is getting longer and longer. So be expecting longer episodes. We'll try to keep them an hour.
Yeah, we'll try to
cut them down.
Continue the trend.
Yeah, I think my story next week will be shorter.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. But
I have an idea.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Also, if you guys have any suggestions of what you want, if things you want us to do or talk about, subjects you want us to discuss, like, you can also let us know about that too. Right. Because sometimes I don't know what to do, and it'd be great to have suggestions. Like, if you guys want to hear about a story, or you want us to tell a story.
Sure.
Please tell us. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be some hometown, like, mystery. Like, you can just say, hey, talk about this subject, or have you heard about this?
Yeah. You know? Or, I don't know. Or if there is something that we've talked about, but you have, like, questions on it still.
Or you want us to, like,
if
dive
you want
in specifically.
Right.
Sometimes it's pretty broad what
maybe
we talk about.
We'll either, do that for...
Have, like, a mini episode of, like,
or we'll,
updates on stuff.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Like, extra stuff.
That'll be good material for, like, a bonus episode.
Yeah. For, like, a bonus episode. So we're not sure if we're doing a Thanksgiving bonus episode. I think we want to. Yeah. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
We're definitely we want to do holiday bonus episodes, like we did for Halloween. We're not sure about, I don't know, maybe Thanksgiving, like a short 30-minute episode.
Yeah.
If we have time.
Yeah, if something shows up on your podcast feed, then we ended up doing one. And if not, then...
So stay tuned. If you have anything you want us to talk about that's Thanksgiving related, that we could talk about on our bonus episode, let us know, and then we'll definitely do a because right now we're just like, what would we do? Right. So if you have good ideas for that, let us know in the next, by Wednesday, probably before. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's coming up. Oh my God. Yeah. Shit. All right. So, I think that's all we got. All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Yeah. This has been Harry. And I am still Carly. And this has been Known Unknowns podcast.
Keep a weather eye on the sky.
Because it's weird out there.
Bye.
Bye.